Okay, let's dive right into this. For thousands of years, traditional medical systems have leaned on this idea of an invisible, vital energy, often called qi, to explain health, disease, and the healing process. But let's be honest, to the modern, rigorously trained scientific mind, those concepts have always felt, well, a bit mystical, right? Today on The Explainer, we're going to see if we can finally bridge that gap. Let's see how modern science might actually be mapping out the biological, anatomical, and even the quantum mechanical pathways that make these phenomena totally real.
So here is a really provocative question for you. Can human intention and touch literally transmit cellular energy? And I mean literally. We aren't talking about metaphors here. We are going to look at hard, clinical data and physical measurements that explain exactly how a healer's biofield interacts directly with a patient's cells. Let's see if we can tear down that wall between ancient Eastern philosophy and modern bioenergetics. Here's our roadmap for today. We're going from the micro all the way to the macro. 1. Translating qi to science. 2. The biology of ATP. 3. Anatomy, meridians, and stress. 4. The quantum biophoton network. And finally, 5. Resonance and entanglement. Let's get started with Section 1, Translating Qi to Science. Ancient concepts, modern vocabulary. The fundamental hurdle in understanding qi has always just been a language barrier. But current bioenergetic research actually suggests that traditional Chinese medicine and modern science aren't describing two different things. They are describing the exact same metabolic vitality, just using entirely different vocabularies. Think about it. In traditional medicine, yang qi represents the body's active, warming, and energizing force. When your yang declines, you get fatigued, you have cold limbs, and recovery is super slow. Sound familiar? In modern cellular biology, this maps perfectly onto your mitochondrial function. When we look at treatments historically described as yang invigorating, we see actual clinical increases in mitochondrial inner membrane fluidity. When we look at qi invigorating treatments, we see enhanced antioxidant systems that preserve cellular energy under stress. So, yang qi is quite literally the biological engine of vitality.
And this brilliantly illustrates how this internal energy connects to the outside world. Ancient cosmology talks about heaven, or Tian, as this cosmic ordering principle that governs human physiology. Well, today, we map this directly onto the geomagnetic field domain. Notice how fluctuations in the Earth's electromagnetic fields and solar activity directly modulate our autonomic nervous system, our cardiovascular rhythms, and our biofield. The macro environment is seamlessly integrating with our microbiology. It's all connected.
Moving right along to Section 2, the biology of ATP, the currency of healing.
If we drop down into the metabolic layer, let's really explore the biochemical interface of healing. If energy is flowing between a practitioner and a patient, what is the physical currency of that exchange? Believe it or not, that currency is adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. It's wild to think about, but this universal energy carrier produced inside your mitochondria is what fuels muscle contraction, nerve conduction, and tissue repair. The incredibly rapid turnover of ATP in the body, especially in the heart, is exactly what those traditional texts describe as the pulsation of qi. So, when a practitioner is said to be sending qi, what they're actually doing is modulating the energetic state and the ATP production of the recipient's very own cells. But wait, how does that transmission happen without physically injecting molecules into someone? Well, it happens through this incredibly cool mechanism called purinergic signaling. A practitioner focuses their intent or applies a very light pressure, often using a specific energetic center in the palm known as the Laogong point. This mechanical or electromagnetic stimulation actually causes the recipient's own surface skin cells, the keratinocytes, to release their stored endogenous ATP. This single chemical release acts as a profound messenger. It kicks off a whole cascade of purinergic signaling that immediately works to reduce pain and accelerate tissue repair. The healer provides the signal and the field, but the patient's own cellular machinery does the actual heavy lifting. Which brings us to Section 3, Anatomy, Meridians, and Stress, the body's architecture. Okay, so now that we understand the cellular mechanism, we have to ask, how does the signal actually travel through the body? This brings us to the physical architecture of energy. For decades, Western science kind of just brushed off meridians because they didn't look like veins or nerves. But advanced imaging and functional MRIs have shown that meridians strongly correspond to the physical connective tissue planes in our body known as fascia. And these pathways are highly conductive. They exhibit significantly lower electromagnetic impedance and higher capacitance than the surrounding tissue. Plus, when physical pressure is applied, like you'd see in acupressure, it generates a small electrical charge in the crystalline structures of our collagen. This is called called piezoelectricity. This electrical signal travels right through the fascial network, simultaneously triggering the parasympathetic nervous system, boosting your vagal tone, and effectively shutting down the body's entire fight-or-flight stress response. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the concrete, measurable proof of that stress reduction. In controlled studies of people practicing Qigong, which is a system of cultivating qi, the physiological shifts are just profound. Look at how stress hormones like cortisol and aldosterone drop significantly. But at the exact same time, crucial repair hormones like growth hormone and insulin-like growth factor absolutely skyrocket. This is absolutely not a placebo effect. This is a highly targeted, measurable metabolic recalibration triggered simply by moving the body's energy. All right, let's take things up a notch. Section 4, the quantum biophoton network, light and intention. To really fully grasp how these therapies work, especially when we start talking about intention or healing at a distance, we have to push way beyond classical physics and classical biology. We gotta go quantum. Let's orient ourselves on the universal scale of magnitude here. We are zooming all the way down, past the organs, past the cells, past the macromolecules, and diving deep into the subatomic world of 10 to the negative 35th centimeters. Here, in the realm of electrons and photons, the strict Newtonian rules of biology completely give way to the strange, non-local realities of quantum field theory. Down in this quantum domain, we run into biophotons. These are basically ultra-weak particles of light emitted by all living organisms as a byproduct of oxidative metabolism inside our mitochondria. But here's the kicker. They aren't just random noise. Modern research increasingly views these biophotons as a highly structured biological communication network. They carry complex information, and most importantly, biophoton emission can literally be modulated by human intention. Biophotons appear to literally be the physical, measurable carrier wave of qi. And the data on this is just absolutely wild. Scientific instruments measuring biophoton emissions from the hands of healers show that their light levels actually diminish by about 11% following a healing session. They are quite literally expending light energy. Conversely, when subjects practice Qigong with a focused intent to project energy, their biophoton emissions experience a massive spike. We're talking sometimes 400 to 600% above baseline. Conscious intention is physically, measurably altering the quantum light emissions of their biology. Which leads us perfectly into Section 5, resonance and entanglement, healing at a distance. This is maybe the most mind-bending part of the whole explainer. If we emit light that carries biological information, how does that translate into profound healing, especially across a distance? Well, the answer lies in resonance and quantum entanglement. At a subatomic level, your mitochondria already utilize a phenomenon called quantum tunneling just to transport electrons. When a highly trained practitioner focuses their intent on a patient, their biophotonic emissions can theoretically create a state of generalized quantum entanglement. The healer and the recipient temporarily form a single, coupled energetic system. In this state, the patient's depleted cells can literally borrow the energetic equilibrium and the high coherence state of the healer. This allows them to recharge and perform necessary cellular repairs completely non-locally. And the biological outcomes of this, what we call external qi emission, or EQE, are staggering. Laboratory studies have documented that this directed energy can modulate crucial cellular signaling pathways. It actively protects healthy neurons and fibroblasts from oxidative stress and can even restore the function of enzymes that have lost their activity. But incredibly, it's also been shown to act as an epigenetic catalyst. It can selectively induce apoptosis, which is programmed cell death, in malignant cancer cell lines, all while leaving healthy cells entirely alone. It is a smart, intelligent, resonant signal communicating directly with cellular DNA. So the crucial point here really comes back to this amazing quote from Nobel Prize-winning biochemist Albert Szent-Györgyi. He said, "In every culture and in every medical tradition before ours, healing is accomplished by moving energy." We are finally, right now, developing the scientific instruments and the quantum vocabulary to understand exactly what those ancient traditions meant. Health is fundamentally a state of coherent subatomic communication, and disease is simply a breakdown of that resonance. We've covered a ton of ground today, from the biology of ATP down to the anatomy of the fascial network and all the way into the quantum reality of biophotons. The science is absolutely clear. Your intention, your environment, and your biofield are deeply, physically intertwined. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Now that you know the very real physical nature of your own vital energy, how will you tune your energetic connections to the world around you? Thanks for hanging out with me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.